This time on Ask Rad Rat, we discuss whether it's possible to permanently switch stances. Welcome back to Rad Rat Video, a channel about skateboarding in all of its forms and every form of media I can find it in. Today we are answering some of your questions, and I've got one here from Johan who says, I have a question or thought for you. So I have frontside 50/50s on lock, but it seems impossible for me to backside 50/50. I've tried it for a month, wanted to break the ice with it, watched many YouTube tutorials, and I still cannot. It looks so easy, but for me it is an extremely weird move to ollie backward. I cannot figure it out. So how do you teach your body to do something really uncomfortable or weird or against nature? I'm not talking about fear, but really the mechanical aspects to it, even if it is linked, obviously. If you have tips or thoughts, thank you. Shout out from Sweden. Okay, so the backside 50/50 specifically, the way that I always did it, I think I have a clip where it's really obvious. I'll try to find it, but I would come up to the box, I would pop, and I would almost land in a nose grind, just a tiny bit, just for a second as I pivoted the back truck onto it. And I never stopped doing that. It just stopped showing, if that makes sense. Like, if I do one now, I still think of it that way. I still picture landing with that front truck and like pivoting the back one on. But now I just like pop and I'm starting to do that pivot in the air and then I land on it straight. So like if I've seen myself do it more recently, it doesn't look like that now, but that's how I learned how to do it. So if that helps, that's a tip for that trick specifically. But every trick has some kind of weird technique to it, like a back tail. For me, when I was learning how to do a back tail, if I was just gonna roll up and like spin backside, it didn't work. My tail would just hit the box and it wouldn't go anywhere. I would have to like pop up. I would have to like turn, like keep the board straight. Don't even think about spinning the board. Pop it perfectly straight and then like push down on the nose like that. And that's how you kind of get the tail up and onto it. And that's the way that I figured out how to do that. Like a kickflip back 5-0 as an example too. I would like I have to change how I'm even showing it because the way that my body is angled is different. But with this one, like let's imagine the box is right here. I would be facing the box, and when I start the kickflip, I push it forward, like I kickflip up ahead of me, and then I'm able to land back here. So I'm not like popping it and then shifting my weight back. I push the board ahead of me so that when I land on it, it's in a 5-0. And if it's slightly tilted, that's fine. So like you can get up onto the coping backside in all these different ways. So, you know, those are the specific tips that worked for me with some backside grind tricks, but it's going to be different for you probably. But when you're talking about just how to teach your body to do things that are weird, I think the biggest thing is staying straight. Like, don't bend down. Don't have your weight too far this way or this way. Don't like, lean as you start to pop. Just try to keep your back straight and your weight on the board. And that helps a lot to just do some kind of spinning trick. At least it'll stay with you if your weight is the right way. So good luck with those. The next question is Ash versus the evil scooter kid, who says, hey Rad Rat, do you think it's possible to have a hardcore mode in a skateboard game, meaning that with every bail the character loses health points and could possibly die before finishing the game? This would be a huge challenge, but an interesting one for skilled gamers. I mean, of course you could, but the question is, how do you make it interesting? Like if your character dies and you just replace them with a new one and you can keep going, then that's not very fun, or it just doesn't matter, and it wouldn't be fun if the game just ends. So how do you balance that? Is it like a Dark Souls type thing where like you died, which is kind of crazy to picture, like you do a Smith grind on some stairs and you died, you bailed so hard that you died. and you have to land that trick again, and that'll let you like recover all of your gear, you'd be a different person, but you could like have all of that guy's stuff because you're able to do his trick. Like I couldn't come up with a way, like a gameplay reason why that would be fun in a skateboarding game specifically, because most skateboarding games are about points, and if you can bail and get hurt, then that's just going to make you get really good at a few tricks and combos and just do them over and over instead of really maximizing the game. I don't know. I don't see a way for that to work, but I'm sure there is one. Of course, that's a traditional style skateboarding game. Skateboarding could be all kinds of different games. Sorry about my phone. It does not have a mute mode now. I mute it by doing the slider on the side, but after an update, it no longer knows that there's a slider anymore, and I just can't mute my phone anymore. All right, next question is from Public Carrera. It says, what plant is the best plant? In Tony Hawk 1, you had fast plants, even though the game never really asked you to use them for any particular challenge. And then in later games, they added in the No Comply, Boneless, Bean Plant, Boned Ollie, and Mike V had his own unique plant, the Mike V Boneless, which was a front 540. But it didn't count as anything, so you could still spin as you did it. It was confusing to do that, especially if you were spinning backside and you did a Mike V Boneless. So the character automatically does a front 540, but you're spinning backside as you do it. Anyway, but there can only be one. So which plant is actually the best one? Are Bean Plant superior because they managed to make it on a certain YouTuber's merch? Are fast plants really the quickest plants and thus give you the boost in height in the shortest amount of time or frames? Are they just cosmetic differences in animation, or is there really one maneuver that gives you the best bang for your buck, i.e. height, distance, point total? So if you're talking about video games, I'm sure that it doesn't matter. I have not noticed any sort of difference in the Tony Hawk games, like a boneless versus a bean plant or anything like that. But in real life, like a fast plant isn't really the same category. Like in a fast plant, you're like already in the air, and let's say there's like a rock or something here, and you grab the board, then you slide your back foot off and plant it and jump back on. That's how I think of a fast plant. You could do one on flat by just sliding your back foot off, but that's really tough because with a boneless, it's your front foot, and then you can like take that step as you jump to keep speed. But to do with your back foot, you would just push off and you'd lose a lot of your speed. So that one would probably be the worst or the least versatile. Sorry about all the siren activity today. It's snowing really badly, and I imagine lots of people are in the ditch or whatever. But yeah, a bean plant is probably second worst, just because, it looks really cool, but as far as being able to add onto it and do more stuff, different kinds of flips and grabs and things like that, not really. But a boneless, you can do anything you want with it. You can flip it and catch it, which is my preferred way. You can just do a boneless and flip it and land on top of it later. But I think it's a lot more cool to flip and grab it. You can flip and spin it. I used to do them where I would have my hand backwards and grab it like this, and I would do a 360 flip and catch it again and land. Like there's a lot of different things you can do with a boneless. You can spin front side, spinning backside with it. I have seen it done. I don't remember the name of the guy who is really good at them. Like a fakey boneless, like a fakey backside boneless into something. You don't even imagine like how that would make sense, but it's possible and it can be done. So I like the boneless the most as far as the games are concerned, which is what I think your question was really about. I don't think there's a difference, but I'm not really the expert in the Tony Hawk games. As much as I've played them in different ways and as many times as I've played them, I have never gotten that good at like the glitches and like how many frames something takes and that type of thing. I can do some, but last question is from Baggy Tony. It says, if you skated only switch for enough time, let's say 10 years, will that eventually become your natural stance? So let's imagine that you were injured in a way that would only affect you in your normal stance. I had a knee problem. I have one again, but this was a different problem, and it was in my normal back foot. And so there was a time when like So if I'm going to pop, if I'm thinking about scooping a tray flip or something, I've got all my weight, like, you know, set up on this back foot, I would only skate for 10 minutes before it would start to hurt. But if I was going to skate switch, I could still land and absorb some impact and it'd be okay, at least for more time. So I could do like switch front shoves, and I was trying to do like more switch flips and just learning more switch stuff because I could skate for more time in switch. And at that point, I had been skating, that was maybe 5 years ago. I've been skating like 15 years at that point. And I don't think it's possible for me to change my natural stance after that much time. And what a stance is so complicated, and no one really has a definitive answer to it. And I think it's a lot more complicated than I am goofy, or, you know, like I don't think that you're 100% one way or the other. Most people have certain tricks they can only do switch, or tricks that at least are much more comfortable switch, just because of the way that your shoulders tend to be or something like that. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense on paper, but that's just how it is. So like, you know, like P-Rod does hard flip switch. He doesn't do them he doesn't do them goofy. He always does them switch. And like, why does he do that? Well, that's the easier way for him. So is it really switch? But like, if you are forced to skate a certain way, that doesn't change what way is easier or harder. I don't know, like, that's a tough one. If you could only skate, let's say you skated not that long, because I skated for like 15 years at the point I'm thinking. If I had been skating for like 2 years and then that happened and I had to skate the other way for 10 years and I learned all these tricks that I could only now do switch, would it still be switch? At that point, I don't think so. I think I could change stances if I did it soon enough. Because as soon as you learn the habits and the way that you stay on your board and like where you're balanced and stuff, like the biggest difference with switch for most people is that when you're skating switch, you're kind of, well, it's this way for me, but you're kind of like this, like you're kind of looking over your shoulder slightly. Maybe your feet are a little bit tipped this way. So from a lot of people, front shove and heel flip type stuff feel more normal in switch. But if you could get past that and you skate a switch so much that eventually you could just be more, you know, more like you skate in the opposite way, like it makes sense that you could switch. It seems like it would feel really wrong. I don't know. It's hard to picture. But yeah, I think the debate, if that happened, if you said, I skated a certain way for 2 years and then I was forced to skate switch for 10 years, I might question whether you picked the right stance the first time, you know, because that's possible. We don't really pick stances based on anything. The way I learned was put your board down, walk at it straight, and jump on, and whichever way your feet go is your stance. And if you pick the wrong stance for you, but that's the only way you ever did it, does it become your natural stance? It's complicated. But yeah, like I was talking about with, like, you know, some pros only do tricks in certain stances. I think that you could have a stance for every trick. I'm goofy only with hospital flips because that's a trick that I can only do switch. So if I do one normal, that would feel switch. I cannot do a hospital flip unless it's switch. But if I learned it would be like doing the switch version. Like it's tough to say. With enough practice, I do think it's possible. But I think at some point your habits get so entrenched that it's too late. So I think that's my best answer at that. Although it'd be interesting to see what you guys think in the comments. So that's it for this time. If you have questions of your own, go to radratvideo.com and submit them there. I always appreciate getting new questions, and I read them all. I don't always pick all of them. I have to be able to have a decent answer for it, but I always appreciate your questions and I always read them, so do not hesitate to submit them. If you like the channel and you want to support it, you can subscribe, you can send it to your friends, you can sponsor me on Patreon, you can hit the join button, or you can just hang out and wait for the next video, which will be coming up next week. But that's it for now. Thanks for hanging out.